Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. Hey everyone, Kyle Brenchley in the house on this Wednesday. It is getting hot out there. Holy cow. It's only May, but it feels like July. It's toasty out there. Welcome to Fan Talk. Fan Talk's a podcast that you can find anywhere you get your podcast. I upload on YouTube and Spotify. I use video and sometimes share my screen. So if you like watching the video, please check it out on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below if you like what you hear. Fan Talk is a podcast by the fans, for the fans, and we have some great things to talk about today. But first, the sign, the candle, the posters, you know the drill. Welcome. Let's jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking mostly basketball. We're talking NBA. We're going to talk about the NBA draft lottery. That is how they determine the order of the draft that will be happening here in just a little bit. And we'll look at where did the Jazz land, who got the number one pick, and where did your team stack up with all the rest. This and more here on Fan Talk. Let's jump in. NBA uses what they call the draft lottery to determine their draft order. I've mentioned this before. The NFL, they simply do the worst team gets the number one pick. They do it by your record, your wins and losses. NHL, they do a lottery. NBA, they do a lottery. And so just because you have the worst record doesn't guarantee that you get the first overall pick. If we were to remember last season, the 2024 to 2025 season, Utah Jazz had the worst record in the NBA, but ended up with the number 5 pick. So nothing's a guarantee. There are odds. If you remember your statistics class, you remember that there are odds and the likelihood of something happening, right? When you bring numbers into the equation, there are odds involved. So how the NBA draft lottery works is that the bottom 3 teams, so the 3 teams with the worst record, they have the highest percentage, the highest number percentage to land the number 1 overall pick. Pretty much every team that does not make the playoffs. There's 8 teams in the Eastern Conference, 8 teams in the Western Conference that make the playoffs, 16 teams, the remaining 14 teams that don't make the playoffs, including teams that make the play-in but don't actually make the playoffs, are put into the draft lottery. And all those 14 teams theoretically have some sort of statistical chance to land the number 1 overall pick. Based on your record is how your lottery odds are numbered. So for example, this season, the Washington Wizards had the worst record in the NBA with only 17 wins and 65 losses. They had the highest lottery odds percentage at 14%. 14% chance that they land the number 1 overall pick, but a 50% chance that they land in the top 4. Now, there's a lot of nuances when it comes to the order outside of the top 4. And I won't get into all the nuances today. We're going to keep this very, very beginner and very, very understandable. All you need to know is if your team sucks, you have a good chance of getting the number 1 pick, but it's not guaranteed, as we saw with the Utah Jazz not landing the number 1 pick last year, and the Dallas Mavericks, a team who was 1 win away from the NBA playoffs, only had a 1% chance of landing the number 1 pick, got the number 1 pick, and took Cooper Flagg. So there has been some crazy things that have happened. The odds aren't always in your favor, and even when they are technically in your favor, it's not a guarantee. So this year, of course, Washington Wizards, as I mentioned, had the worst record. They had the best lottery odds. The bottom 3 teams, Washington Wizards, Indiana Pacers, and Brooklyn Nets, were the 3 teams that had the best lottery odds, followed by the Utah Jazz and the Sacramento Kings, and then the rest of the teams had much lower lottery odds. This is directly from the NBA.com website. As you can see here, here's the 14 teams that were in the lottery. Here is their record. Here is their odds percentage. So as you can see, like I mentioned, the bottom 3, 14%. Sacramento had 11%. Here's the other teams there in the lottery. So Clippers, Golden State, Miami, Charlotte, those 4 teams all made the play-in but did not make the playoffs. So they were put back into the lottery odds. But as you can see, their chances of getting it, while not 0, are very low. They did the draft lottery on Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. And these are the results. Charlotte, Miami, Oklahoma City, Miami got another one. Milwaukee, Dallas, Atlanta, Sacramento, Brooklyn, LA Clippers, Chicago, Memphis, Utah, and Washington. The Washington Wizards were the number 1 overall pick. They won it. Very fitting, actually. When you go to the draft, you send a representative. Sometimes it's the owner. Sometimes it's a player. Sometimes it's an executive. Sometimes it's a former player. The Washington Wizards sent John Wall, which was their last number 1 overall pick in 2009. And John Wall was there to accept the number 1 pick for Washington. They'll likely take AJ Dybantsa, but we'll talk about mock drafts here in just a second. Utah was number 2, Memphis number 3, Chicago number 4. As you can see, Indiana fell out because the Clippers got that trade, got that pick. But those are your lottery results. The Utah Jazz ending up with the 2nd overall pick. And the question is, what will the Jazz do with the 2nd overall pick? When you're looking at mock drafts, and mock drafts are simply just drafts that aren't the real drafts, but you're pretending to draft, projecting what may or may not happen. A lot of people are saying number 1 pick is going to be AJ Dybantsa, of course, out of BYU. So if the Wizards do that and pick AJ Dybantsa, that leaves the Jazz with a couple of options. The straightforward option, the option that a lot of mock drafts are predicting, is Darren Peterson, point guard / shooting guard out of Kansas, played 1 year there, and he's a good player. He's a very talented player. The Jazz, of course, added Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Grizzlies. They have young players like Ace Bailey, Keontae George, of course, Lauri Markkanen, who they're building around. If they bring back Walker Kessler, they have some good players. They have some momentum, and the tank is over. They're going to try to move forward. Can they take Darren Peterson? A lot of people are saying they should consider Cameron Boozer. Of course, his father, Carlos Boozer, played for the Jazz for many seasons. Carlos Boozer and Cameron Boozer, both power forward, center, a little, bigger type player, not quite the guard. The Jazz do have a lot of guards. They do have a lot of big guys too, especially when they bring in Jaren Jackson Jr. So they might not be looking at Cameron Boozer as that forward, as that center. Maybe they're looking for more of a guard with Darren Peterson. So interesting to see what the Jazz do there. Memphis Grizzlies are the 3rd pick. They're projected to take Cameron Boozer. The Chicago Bulls at 4 projected to take Caleb Williams from North Carolina. All these guys are freshmen so far. The top 5 picks, the next guy from Illinois, he's a freshman. Number 6 is a freshman. Number 7's a freshman. Number 8's a freshman. Number 9's a freshman. Number 10's a freshman. That is just the landscape of college basketball. If you're a superstar, you play 1 year at your college and then you go to the NBA. On the other end of the spectrum, you got these 5th-year senior guys who are playing because they know they might not end up in the NBA, and they're playing every single last ounce of basketball they can before they have to go work in finance or in insurance. But it's incredible that the top 10 picks are all projected to be freshmen. The first senior is not projected until Yaxel Lindenboer, of course, from Michigan, who played a few years in junior college. That is the NBA draft lottery. Again, the Washington Wizards will get the number 1 pick. The Utah Jazz will be number 2. Will they pick Darren Peterson? Will they go Cam Boozer? Will they go another option? They really don't have a lot of room to mess it up here. Now, there are some good options further down the road, but Darren Peterson on paper is one of the better options. He's a solid player. He's talented. Will he fit into the NBA is always the question. Will his skills translate from college to the NBA? That's what the executives have to determine. The NBA draft is coming up. The NBA draft is on June 23rd and 24th. So right now they're at the draft combine. The scouts are there looking at the players, deciding how they will fit into their scheme. They have about a month to prove their worth. And then come June 23rd and 24th, they will make their picks. AJ Dybantsa is my pick for number 1. It would be silly if the Wizards did not take him. If by somehow they decide to go Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer or someone else and Dybantsa falls to Utah, that would be very interesting, but that is not what I think will happen. I think Dybantsa is clearly the number 1 pick. I think the Jazz go Darren Peterson. I think Cameron Boozer goes 3, and I think Caleb Wilson goes 4 to the Chicago Bulls. Let me know what you guys think down below, your draft predictions, what you guys think will happen, what you guys hope will happen. Did your team score in the lottery this year, or did they get screwed? Let me know down below. Let's take a quick look at the NBA. Since last week's episode, the Lakers got swept. The Sixers have gotten swept. So now we have 2 teams in the semifinals. We're down to the final 6 teams. Oklahoma City Thunder awaiting the winner of Timberwolves and Spurs, and the New York Knicks awaiting the winner of Pistons and Cavaliers. I think the Spurs have this series in the bag. Maybe the Timberwolves win Game 6 and force a Game 7. But with Victor Wembanyama, there is no way that the Timberwolves beat the Spurs. You just watch the games, and you can just tell the Spurs are just so much more equipped with Victor Wembanyama as their final defenseman. The Timberwolves will not go into the paint. Rudy Gobert is scared to go into the paint. Rudy Gobert, who's been the defensive player of the year multiple years, who other players have been afraid of him, is now afraid of this Victor Wembanyama, his fellow Frenchman. So I think the Spurs go through. Spurs Thunder should be a fantastic matchup. We'll preview that next week. And then the Knicks are awaiting the Pistons and Cavaliers. Now this one should be very interesting because the Cavaliers, let me give you a stat. The Cavaliers are 0-5 on the road, meaning that they've won 0 games and lost 5 games on the road in the playoffs. They are 6-0 at home. So every time they play at home, they win. Every time they play on the road, they lose. And that worked out for them against the Raptors because they were the higher seed and had more games at home. They had 4 games at home compared to 3 games on the road. And the Cavaliers won every single game at home and lost every single game on the road. That's been true about this Pistons-Cavaliers series too. They're tied 2-2 going back to Detroit tonight. Again, today is Wednesday. Will they win on the road? They're going to have to if they're going to get past the Pistons and move on to the New York Knicks. Regardless, that should be a fun series to watch. Keep your eye on that. Let's take a quick look at the NHL playoffs as well. Again, the Carolina Hurricanes are the only team into the Final Four. The Colorado Avalanche lead 3-1 on the Wild. I think they go through. And then 2 fantastic series, the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens. That was a fantastic game last night. Sabres getting a road win. That was huge. And then the Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. Vegas winning in overtime yesterday. Another fantastic series. Winner of those series goes on to the conference finals to face Carolina and likely the Colorado Avalanche. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Fan Talk and learning about the NBA Draft Lottery. Again, if you are from Utah, the Jazz got the number 2 overall pick. Probably won't take AJ DeBonsa, but that's still great. They still haven't ever gotten a number 1 overall pick, but that's all right. The tank's over. We don't have to worry about playing these lottery odds anymore. We can draft Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, Caleb Wilson, whoever the Jazz decide to take, and we can move forward. Congrats to the Washington Wizards for getting the number 1 overall pick. AJ DeBonsa is yours. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Fan Talk. If you guys like what you hear, again, this is uploaded on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Video versions are available. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing and commenting down below. And I'll see you guys next week for another edition of Fan Talk.